In the early 1960s, the American auto industry entered a new era, an era of space-age dreams, of aerodynamic lines, and of technology ahead of its time. In the midst of that wave, Ford launched a car that made the whole world turn its head, the third-generation Thunderbird, introduced in 1961. But this was not just a luxury coupe. In the eyes of Americans then, it was the very image of the future. While most cars had cast off the massive fins of the 1950s and moved toward boxier shapes, the Thunderbird chose another path. Smooth, flowing curves, a body that looked sculpted, and details drawn from jet aircraft. It was both sensual and powerful, practical, yet still full of dreams. And today we'll look back to uncover why the 1961 to 1963 Thunderbird was not only a success in sales, but also a vivid testament to the ambition and limitless imagination of the American auto industry in the early 1960s. The Thunderbird's story began in 1955, when Ford unveiled its answer to Chevrolet's Corvette. But while the Corvette leaned heavily into the raw spirit of a sports car, the Thunderbird took a slightly different path. It was sleek, low, and stylish, a two-seater that wasn't built to dominate racetracks, but to make its driver feel glamorous, sophisticated, and alive behind the wheel. Yet only a few short years later, Ford recognized something important. The American buyer wanted more than speed. They wanted a car that could deliver excitement without sacrificing comfort, a car that felt just as natural pulling up to a country club as cruising down the highway. That realization gave birth to the second-generation Thunderbird in 1958. This was no longer a two-seat roadster. With its four-seat layout, it opened the door to an entirely new category, the personal luxury car. Plush interiors, refined styling, and just enough performance to remind you it still had Thunderbird DNA. And because no other automaker offered anything quite like it, the Thunderbird instantly carved out a segment of its own. But by the close of the 1950s, Ford knew it was time to push the idea even further. The next Thunderbird wouldn't just adapt to the times, it would embody the future. When the third-generation Thunderbird arrived in 1961, it looked nothing like the cars around it. Nicknamed the Bullet Bird and shaped under the hand of designer Elwood Engel, it carried an aura that felt straight out of the future. At a glance, the car had a presence that made people stop and stare. The front end set the tone. A wide shark-mouth grille stretched nearly the full width of the car, flanked by deeply set dual headlamps framed in chrome. It wasn't just elegant, it looked purposeful, as if staring straight down the highway. The long hood flowed forward with subtle creases pressed into the sheet metal, giving the impression of motion even while the car was standing still. Along the sides, smooth and continuous curves hugged the body, accented by deep-set wheel arches and crisp chrome details that seemed to mimic the airflow over a jet fuselage. And at the rear, the theme of aviation reached its peak. The round, bullet-shaped taillights evoked jet afterburners, a signature Thunderbird touch that instantly set it apart from anything else on the road. Then came one of its boldest features, the glass. Both windshield and rear window swept dramatically into panoramic curves, a radical departure from the flat panes that most cars still used. The effect was futuristic, daring, and unmistakably modern. Altogether, this was not a car that looked designed for the moment. It looked like a concept car that had somehow made the leap into mass production, a machine meant to capture not just the eye, but the imagination. If the outside of the Thunderbird looked like a concept car brought to life, the inside felt like stepping into the cockpit of a jet. From the moment you slid behind the wheel, the design made it clear. This wasn't just transportation, it was an experience. The dashboard swept across the driver's area, gently wrapping around with a rhythm that echoed the control panels of modern aircraft. Large round gauges sat directly in front of the wheel, clean and easy to read, while neatly arranged toggle switches gave the impression of flipping controls in a jetliner. Every detail was designed to make the driver feel like the pilot of something truly special. The seats carried the same philosophy. Up front, each chair was crafted as an individual unit, with the unique ability to swivel slightly outward, making entry and exit graceful rather than clumsy. Upholstered in premium leather, trimmed with polished chrome and brushed aluminum, they delivered both luxury and modernity in equal measure. Between driver and passenger sat a wide center armrest. More than a convenience, it was a statement, subtly reinforcing the idea that the Thunderbird wasn't a family sedan, but a personal luxury machine built around the individual. And then there was the light. Thanks to the dramatic panoramic glass and the sweeping roofline, sunlight poured into the cabin, expanding the sense of space and giving every ride a bright, open feel. It was this combination of technology, design, and atmosphere that earned the Thunderbird a new nickname in the early 60s, the pilot's car. Of course, a car with such presence needed more than just beauty. Beneath that long hood sat the heart of the Thunderbird, a 390 cubic inch V8, fed by a 4-barrel carburetor and delivering between 300 and 330 horsepower, depending on the version. Numbers that, in the early 1960s, placed it firmly in the league of serious performance cars. Paired to this engine was Ford's 3-speed Cruise-O-Matic automatic transmission. It wasn't built for drama. It was built for smoothness. Shifts slipped by almost unnoticed, allowing the driver to focus less on the mechanics and more on the journey itself. And when called upon, the Thunderbird could surge from 0 to 60 miles per hour in just 8 to 9 seconds. For a luxury coupe weighing over 4,200 pounds, that was nothing short of impressive. The chassis was equally well thought out. Up front, double wishbones with coil springs kept the car planted and composed. At the rear, traditional leaf springs offered durability and stability. Hydraulic brakes on all 4 wheels gave reliable stopping power, an essential feature for a car of its size and weight. But the real magic was in the way it all came together. On the open highway, the Thunderbird moved with confidence, steady, quiet, and composed, filtering out the roughness of the road. In city streets, the wide panoramic glass and low seating position gave the driver clear sight lines, making a big car feel surprisingly manageable. And through it all, the engine's deep, confident note reminded you that there was always strength in reserve. This was not a car that begged you to rush. It invited you to settle in, relax, and enjoy the ride, with all the calm assurance of true luxury. Ford knew that the Thunderbird's appeal wasn't just in the way it looked or drove, it was in the lifestyle it represented. From the very beginning, the company positioned it not as a simple automobile, but as a symbol of status and taste. Print advertisements placed the Thunderbird alongside elegant couples dressed in suits and evening gowns, stepping out in front of luxury hotels, private clubs, and yacht harbors. Magazines like Life, Esquire, and National Geographic carried full-page spreads that presented the car as the natural choice for the successful and the sophisticated. On television, commercials showed it gliding effortlessly down modern highways, with quick cuts to its distinctive grille, its gleaming chrome, and the cockpit-inspired interior. The message was clear. This was not just transportation. This was a statement. Hollywood and the fashion world quickly followed. The Thunderbird began showing up in movies, in television shows, and even in style editorials, cementing its image as one of the most recognizable cultural icons of the early 1960s. Celebrities bought them, photographers loved them, and the public saw them as the car of choice for people who had already arrived. Ford also added to the mystique with limited editions. In 1962 came the sports Roadster, with a sleek tonneau cover over the rear seats, an external spare tire in the classic Continental style, and chrome wire wheels by Kelsey Hayes. Then in 1963, the Principality of Monaco edition appeared, just 2,000 built, finished in Corinthian white, with a gold-accented interior, its details polished to perfection. Each special version reminded buyers that the Thunderbird was not for everyone. It was for the select few. By the time the third-generation Thunderbird bowed out in 1963, it had already secured its place as one of the most distinctive cars of its era. More than a machine, it was a rolling piece of art, practical enough to use every day, yet futuristic enough to spark the imagination. It defined what a personal luxury car could be, setting a standard that other automakers would chase throughout the decade. That legacy is still alive today. Well-preserved examples, especially convertibles or models equipped with rare option packages, often command strong prices at high-profile auctions. Collectors prize them not just for their rarity, but for the emotional value they carry. Each one a time capsule of America's optimism at the dawn of the space age. The Thunderbird community has also played its part in keeping the legend alive. Organizations like the Vintage Thunderbird Club International have built networks of owners who share knowledge, source parts, and offer guidance for restorations. Thanks to a solid chassis and a design that lends itself to preservation, many bullet birds remain on the road, shining examples of a time when style and ambition walked hand in hand. And perhaps that is why the car's image endures. The 1961 to 1963 Thunderbird continues to be remembered not only as a milestone in design, but as a symbol of an America that was bold, creative, and unafraid to dream big. Even today, one glance at those graceful lines is enough to bring the early 1960s rushing back. Looking back, the 1961 to 1963 Thunderbird was never just a car. It was a symbol of an entire golden era in American automotive history. Every graceful curve, every jet-inspired detail, and the luxurious cockpit-like interior all combined to make it the car from the future in the eyes of the world. More than half a century has passed, yet every time a bullet bird appears on the road, it still brings back that same sense of awe as it did on its debut in 1961. It didn't just secure Ford's place in the spotlight, it reminds us of a time when America was filled with ambition, creativity, and the confidence to step boldly into the future. How about you? Have you ever seen, sat in, or even driven a 1961 to 1963 Thunderbird? Or do you have a story or memory tied to the Bullet Bird that you'd like to share? Tell us in the comments below. If you love these four-wheeled legends, don't forget to hit like on this video. And be sure to subscribe so you won't miss the next journey into the cars that made history.